Awesome. Okay, so we'll kick it off. We've got an hour today to have a look at the topic, how to assess without compromise in the digital world. Now, the session, as I said, recorded for those that can't make it. I know we're sharing the audience today amongst a number of sessions and the like. With a smaller group, we can still get some really good insights, share some experience, and really unpack the topic. So welcome everybody. I know we've got people from different states and the like as well on the call today. First off, a little overview regards to who I am, what I'm all about. There's the horrid shot. Myself, I'm Alex Fuller. I'm head of customer success here at Cloud Assess. I've been working with Cloud Assess in the digital assessment space for just over 10 years, coming up to 11 years. Within my role here, I've done many different sort of positions. I've led onboarding with a good majority of our client as well. So I've had a lot of exposure to different industries, different organizations, and the different processes that businesses will come into. Through the session, we will, for just a bit of a housekeeping, I will have you all on mute, but feel free to raise your hand and I'll unmute you, or you can unmute yourselves actually, should you require. If you want to ask any questions or you want to share some experience and insights, you'll be more than welcome to. So I do want it to be a very free-flowing sort of organic session, and definitely a bit of experience share if we're up for that as well. We've got a number of polls through the session, and it should be hopefully very insightful when we get into that experience share piece. As head of customer success here at Cloud Assess, we manage a really diverse client base. We work with education providers that are in the schools arena, providers that are enterprise RTOs and private as well. And we work across a very large number of accredited providers here in Australia. So keen to show the experience that we've got, but also some of the insights that we're seeing and some of the trends and changes that are challenging the industry today as well. So great to meet you all, and looking forward to interacting. We'll move forward. So a bit of an overview of the agenda. What we're going to cover today, we're going to have a look at what is the impact on assessment. So how that digital, that tech impacts. We'll break that down to the principles of assessment. We'll have a look at delivery modes and method and how we define those. We'll look at suggestions, solutions, ideas, and case studies around how we assess without compromise in the digital space. And we'll also get back to the reasoning. What's driving our motivation other than the obvious around compliance and quality outcomes? We'll have a look at why we assess using digital tools and why that without compromise is so important. I can see a few joining us just after time there. So just a recap, please feel free to use the chat. I will keep an eye on that as we go forward. And there will be some polls, some interactions and the like that we're really keen for you all to engage with. With regards to sort of defining the concept of assessment in context of the digital world, we're going to look at highlighting the sort of significance of really accurate assessment and really sort of robust fit for purpose assessment, how that impacts decision making and marking processes. We're going to also sort of unpack the challenges that are posed by the digital landscape, such as data integrity, security, and the rapid pace of those technological advancements that we're seeing. Without sort of focusing or deep diving too much on any one specific, I'm really keen to sort of get your experiences out there as well. There is a piece there. We'll look at AI, ChatGPT, and the different advancements and the impacts that we're seeing out there in the delivery world. Awesome. Okay. Now, every good presentation includes a quote. So a quote from our founder, Rob Wright. Rob has been a big input to the digital learning day with Phil over the years. So there's no reason why assessing in the digital age should not be a great experience. And for those of you that joined our panel discussion earlier this morning, Dr. Denise really hit on this. It's about doing it good, not necessarily just efficient. So using those digital tools and embracing technology where it's fit for purpose, where it adds the value and delivers great experience. So experience driven is something that, our modern students across the demographic, they all expect a great experience. It's engaging and relevant to them and in context. So very, very focused on the experience piece as we go forward as well. Going to launch a poll now. So one of the polls we'll have a look at is the impacts of assessment. So you'll see a poll. All the attendees can jump on and give us your thoughts and feelings regards to ranking the following factors from highest to lowest based on their typical impact on assessment. Now, these are certainly not all and every impact that we'll see. But if you can drop in what your thoughts and feelings are, and this is a ranking, so lowest to highest, where you feel the impact is felt on the assessment process when we're considering that digital piece as well. So we're getting some results come through nice and quickly there. It's an interesting sort of process to go through when we're ranking those. It's quite split. I'll give you a moment or two on that, and then we'll start to release the results. So with the assessment piece here, what impacts and considerations, or do we have considerations for with regards to the tech impact? Fantastic. So we'll end that poll there, and we'll share those results. So as you can see, it was quite an interesting split. We did have just a bit of favorability towards human impacts there. It's good insights to get from you. Standards came very, very popular up there as well. We've got a number of factors, essentially. And with those factors, there's a bit more to it, I suppose. So when we're ranking them there, it's kind of regardless of the digital age, these could all impact assessment. And when we're looking at the tech impacts, they've got unique nuances in how they affect our assessment processes. So obviously, we've got to adhere to and excel in the principles of assessment. Engagement is a very challenging thing in an ever-changing tech-focused world. When we look at that social engagement of different users, different learners that we're supporting, and how they communicate outside of their education, the industry impacts, engaging industry, employers, workplaces, those that are supporting the training and even assessment processes, perhaps alongside us as education providers, the industry engagement to technology, as well as to our design and assessment processes, is very, very impactful. And that's, really echoing that human piece, I suppose, when we look at, the human impact, the engagement, the compliance, the industry, our trainers and assessors in the field, our delivery and design. It's all very much hinged around that human impacts and the individual having such a vast sort of control on the outcomes. Technology, we looked at it earlier around putting that face out there and making it personal, having access to a real trainer and assessor. The technology benefits the individual, the human, but doesn't necessarily replace the human. There's a good argument and some investigatory stuff that we're going to go through a little bit in the later slides, where we really break down how that technology aligns with our methods and our methods very much including the human where required and where it's best to do so. Awesome. Okay, we'll move into the next. So, principles of assessment. I'm sure we're all familiar with the principles of assessment, but can digital technology have that impact? So, the right and wrong from a tech sort of perspective. First off, and I think this tops the board, is making sure we're fit for purpose solutions. So, solutions that have the considerations, have the capability of managing the, move through a few there, managing the impacts and dealing with those in a much more practical way. So no compromise really with the solutions we're picking. The solution has to be built fit for purpose. And it has to align to our design and requirements rather than us compromising in the questioning or the assessment methods that we use. For example, when we're delivering a practical observation in the workplace, shoulder to shoulder, if our tech doesn't support that, do we remove that observation? Do we give it less weight or less consideration? That's us making compromise for a technology, because as a business, we perhaps value the efficiency perspective too much. So it's a really fine balance around ensuring that your tech has that capability. Validity, breaking down validity. When we talk about right person, there's a piece there around, is the person given the right support, the right coaching, the digital literacy requirement as well. And that covers a number of elements around flexibility and fairness too. But right person, traceability. So technology can really aid us with gathering evidence and supporting authenticity and traceability there. But at the same time, there's some things that tech might hinder. If we, for example, evidence real-time face-to-face might carry better outcomes than simply attached photos. So not necessarily removing the human, but unlocking its benefits where it's relevant. Fairness, the considerations we've got here, the challenges that we might have on paper. So paper might be delaying feedback. It might be that our solutions don't allow for quality feedback. And the reasonable adjustment methods. How are we identifying where reasonable adjustment should occur? And can our tech support the options that we would have with or without that tech? So reasonable adjustment is something that, not one size fits all in our assessment solutions. And again, I've seen quite commonly where there is compromise with a solution. That solution works for the majority. That's our solution we're going to offer. So being very personal to the requirement of the user and being able to identify that perhaps uncomfortableness with tech, the fact that others' ability with using solutions is higher than the next, does that make them more competent in the subject we're looking at? We're talking very practical vocational learners. In a lot of instances earlier today, Kerry in the panel discussion talked about learners not having access to email, not being able to receive or send email, not being able to access a website. How do we approach that from a tech perspective? Do we use the tech for our trainer? Do we look at reasonable adjustment, or do we look at how we're going to build that capability in as part of our training delivery, are going to ensure that the tools available are fit for purpose and suitable? The flexibility piece, so reflecting on needs, I think I've already lent on that one, but environmental considerations as well. There's a lot of challenge that tech can have. I've got a client that delivers a very, very nice training product, but predominantly in a workplace that internet is not available and not accessible. They're actually working in power stations. In a power station, any device has to be deemed intrinsically safe. So there's additional requirements of cases and the like to sort of support with that. But internet is certainly never going to be a thing within that working environment. So the technologies that they might pick to use and support with efficiency and gathering of evidence and delivery of different modes and methods of assessment has to meet those challenges. Whereas paper, there's less or no consideration for that need. Paper in that instance and industry might be the go-to, but are we missing some of the value benefits and some of the opportunities there with tech if tech is capable? And the range of assessment methods. A lot of training today. We have, different modes and methods of training and assessment in a really, really robust product. And then we deliver it remotely rather than face-to-face. We deliver it in a different medium, and we choose to reduce, or we have to compromise on the different modes and methods of assessment available to us because we're constricted with that technology. And a lot of business pressures, a lot of sort of even employer pressure, workplace pressures might require us to perhaps change, but not always for the better, the methods that we choose to use for assessment. And obviously consistency. And tech, fantastic from a consistency perspective when used right, but at the same time, we need to build in those quality processes, that quality review, our moderation pieces have to exist. And how do we do that right in a tech sort of focused world? So really, really key that we bring some of our decision making in how we apply tech back to the core principles of assessment here. Awesome. Suitability, breaking it down further. We've spoken about considering methods of delivery. I've seen lots of great examples of, fit for purpose, the right methods being picked. And how do we define what is a right method? Is it because we've spoken to our learners, spoken to our employers, our workplaces that are hosting apprentices and trainees? Have we engaged with their requirements there when we've considered the methods? Our results, our quality outcomes will show us when we're doing a good job there. I've also seen 100% online delivery of certain courses, which you've got to question, is that suitable and is that right? Or is it simply just, an efficiency and a financial decision? And this is about maintaining quality in our training. So, we've therefore taken compromise. And really and truthfully, I think there's organizations out there that don't feel that it is compromised. And it may well not be. There are situations potentially existing where that complete 100% online, remote, no face-to-face delivery is perhaps relevant. It's a very topical conversation, but when we see very practical requirements or very practical subjects in that delivery method, I think we could all very quickly say we're going to have some concerns with that. But a quick Google search will find examples of it that I'm sure would raise concern. Workplace arrangements. Workplace arrangements has been really, really sort of challenging with how the future of vet is moving. When we look at the transformation year, 2024, for vet employers are very, very highly focused, especially when we're delivering higher AQF levels, or the approach and expectation is that we're able to deliver those higher AQF levels to fully work placement sort of trainees and end user. Those workplace arrangements very often don't look at the impacts, the challenges that we might have from a digital or tech perspective. They don't look necessarily at how we're going to contain and build rigor into our assessment processes, right from enrollment through to completion. There's probably a tech touch going on there that needs to be assessed. So we need to look at things like duration. Does tech and the efficiencies gained from tech reduce or impact the duration of our courses of study? Does it impact our duration of our delivery methods? Because we built this fantastic on-demand solution. Are we testing that? Are we reviewing that? How are we delivering quality against that? And lots of consideration for the users that we perhaps won't necessarily have direct or regular contact with when they're in those workplaces. So duration is a big consideration. We know that we've got volume of learning standards perhaps to address it and to meet those volume of learning standards. What evidence are we using? Is it real evidence? Is it factual? Is it just online engagement is classed as volume of learning? Are our measures, our assessment processes behind that learning robust enough to be able to show that we're delivering our obligations there? And when we look at cost as well, it's a commercial sort of operation in the majority. So cost, when we're looking at cost, should tech be, cost, we pay for what we get potentially. With that cost model, we want something that's efficient, but we might need to pay for fit for purpose. So cost is always an impact. And in some instances, technology is driving down the cost. If we don't have to drive to collect evidence, or we don't have to go back to get a signature because it was missed on the day, there's a potential cost benefit to the organization. But at the same time, picking the wrong solutions can be very costly too. So suitability, definitely key in our applications. And this review, these questions, these decisions can be asked at any point of your tech journey as a business and can be reviewed, and should be. These should be an ongoing review that's live within your business. Are we getting the right outcomes that we're looking to achieve with the approach we've taken? Awesome. Okay. Delivery. So we do have a bit of a poll that I'll launch here. So with the poll, that's the wrong poll. Let's come back to that one. With the poll that I'm going to launch, we're going to look at delivery modes and methods. So let me just bring up the correct poll. So modes and methods, delivery methods, this one here. Fantastic. So what delivery methods are you currently using here? So we've got some votes straight in there with the delivery modes and methods. Definitely like you, if you're on the call, to engage with this one. Very interesting. And there's potentially a lot of context behind it. So delivery modes and methods, RPL could be across all of these as well. We talk about RPL as a mode of delivery rather than a method of delivery. Self-paced can touch both on mode and method. So there's a lot of crossover between them. And again, we've got a really nice split here. So online is actually being the forerunner here. So we've got online delivery as perhaps our main go-to for some within the call. Online needs to be thought through as well. Online, when we talk about digital, is it 100% online, remove the human, or is it online is a tool that we use within our training and delivery? I should suspect that's where the majority sit. And online, fantastic for that knowledge and that theory components, potentially for project work and evidence gathering. But how do we use it? How do we apply it? We'll definitely sort of deep dive, because there's many, many different approaches that can have a big impact on quality there. Blended comes in very close second. A blended delivery is definitely the most common that we tend to see, I suppose, across our client base, where we'll definitely have a very strong element of those practical skills being assessed, live, face-to-face in those work environments. But we also see very successfully the same occurring in the online world, perhaps. Awesome. I'll end that poll and share the results with you there. So we'll drop those results up onto your screen. Interesting to see. Wonderful. With the different types of assessment, the practical observations, we're going to have some conversation on how that delivery online can show easy benefits and easy compromise where we have potential concerns. So having a look at those different modes and methods of assessment and making sure that they are fit for purpose is really, really key. There are some fantastic tools out there for delivering, online digital assessment, but that might be used face to face. So when we talk about assessment, we talk about it being digital. Online assessment is just simply the method. So we haven't changed our mode of delivery. Our mode is very much, we're going to be face to face doing an observation. We're going to take an experienced trainer and assessor that understands the requirements of competency, understands the industry, has great rapport with our learner, but we're not taking paper out with us, we're taking an iPad. We're going out there, we're using those digital tools really, really effectively, perhaps. And they've got great solutions for gathering evidence. They've got great solutions for being able to map that back. Great ways of interacting and engaging. It might be, I've got in the workplace, hey, I've got a video here of perhaps a startup procedure. Have a look through it. Now I'm going to, I'm going to go through a verbal conversation, competency conversation, gather some thoughts and some insights from my learner. Great tools to have both in the workplace and remote. Awesome. Okay. And moving on to the face-to-face delivery. So as I've mentioned here, digital assessment, what does it mean? It doesn't necessarily mean 100% online delivery. It can be all modes and methods of assessment when we pick our tool correctly. So digital assessments have so much flexibility if you're using the right tools. And it might be that you use a combination of tools around how you're going to deliver that digital assessment. And we've got to be careful how we categorize assessment, both from a summative and a formative perspective. So the formative sort of review and the learning pieces can be very, very enhanced and drive engagement through great use of technology, but also can be really prohibitive if we haven't taken our learner through that sort of suitability and coaching and support to make them feel comfortable with adopting that technology delivery approach. The gathering of evidence. So big challenges around authenticity that we've seen it from auditors, we've seen it through a lot of different use cases around authenticity of evidence and quality evidence. An hour recording a session like today, a delivery session that your trainers might be going, is that fantastic evidence to show how we're meeting criteria of the unit? Is it great real-time evidence that I'm looking at, or should I be getting much more rules of evidence applied and going, perhaps down to what am I looking to achieve with my assessment, rather than just the fact I turned up and engaged. So evidence, quality evidence, recordings of conversation. How are we picking through that? How are we presenting that? And how are we meeting those rules of evidence? Really, really key. And what restrictions do we have within our tech? If I'm working offline, how can I gather that quality evidence? If I'm remote, or if I'm perhaps delivering training like one of our organizations, it might be underwater. I'm training a process underwater, or I'm assessing a process underwater. How do we gather good quality evidence? How can tech help us? What were we doing pre-tech? How have we evolved? Do we need to evolve, and should we? So lots of challenge within that. And observations are, practical observations, the fit for purpose and the use cases, in a very vocational world. The practical delivery of training and assessment, the observational parts, the workplace, logbooking, training record books, the different sort of interactions that we'll have across that learner's journey is so important to try and maintain for the right reasons. So if we know that drives quality outcomes, if we know it gives us quality evidence and the like, how are we going to approach that where our solutions, our modes, our methods are challenged by that tech? The workplace learning piece, really, really focusing with the workplace learning. It can be that employers, especially when we look at, perhaps the more practical tasks, there's a piece that I've been doing with a group that's very focused in the trades-based skills. and the support that they have within that workplace to adopt the tech and to make the most of that is a big challenge. So how do we approach it? Is it, training? Is it giving them the tools, the skills, and the comfort? Or do we look at how we use tech differently in those spaces? Third-party reporting. Third-party reporting, traditionally, third parties are very hard to engage with too. There's organizations that I work with that have over 1,000 third-party supervisors that will support apprenticeships, traineeships, and work-based learning. Of those larger organizations, especially when it's non-enterprise delivery, the engagement can be so hard. So how are we selling the benefits to them around efficiency? How are we communicating that? How have we changed their processes versus the old-fashioned, can you sign my logbook at the end of the week sort of review? And how do we leverage that for quality outcomes? So lots of different factors to consider within how we train. This one comes up all the time. I actually did a webinar with a different group last week, and we started to talk about AI, ChatGPT, and the like, and the chat blew up with, has anybody got a really good plagiarism tool? What solutions are available for us to challenge that ChatGPT piece? How do we mitigate the risk of ChatGPT? And we've seen this with universities. We've seen it at all levels of education, down to our schools as well. Certain schools here in Queensland have banned the use of ChatGPT, where others have taken a different approach and tried to adopt it in a controlled way. And certain universities, Phil actually used a bit of an experience share earlier in one of the panel discussions, and he was saying that there's a university that is outright sort of removed ChatGPT, and there's another that's adopted it. There's some benefits to ChatGPT that we're all aware of. Maybe it's a great tool for efficiently gathering learning resources and writing training materials and the like. Obviously, we'd fact check and the like, perhaps after gathering that information that ChatGPT produces for us. But we as educators can see the value and benefit perhaps that ChatGPT has got. We know some of the risks too. That world is ever evolving, but are the benefits that we should have perhaps considered for our learners that we don't want to remove or we don't want to restrict? Should we be educating our learners around how better to use ChatGPT, how we can align it with learning outcomes? How can we embrace that? How can we set our learners perhaps in better stead for the workforce? Is ChatGPT going to be used within their roles moving forward? It's a great tool for analyzing data where we've got factual data. Let's say we'll go back to a trades-based scenario. I'm a carpenter and I'm ordering, my raw resources materials. So I've got to put in an order for 2x4s with my local timber supplier. And I've done the measurements in Calcs unit. I understand how to do that, but I could look at other solutions to perhaps check my information, check my knowledge. Are we afraid of plagiarism because our assessment modes and methods are very theory or knowledge based, and we don't have really authentic assessment that looks at the practical? We've gained that knowledge. If we go back days before ChatGPT, and we'd have to go back quite some time, it might be surprising, but AI tools, Google launched a chatbot 9.5 years ago that was AI based. It's been around longer perhaps than we've adopted it. But if we go back before those solutions were available to our learners and to ourselves, we had the same challenge or considerations, perhaps maybe slightly different slant, but we had those challenges around plagiarism. How did we manage that plagiarism back then? Did we just run it through a plagiarism tool? Did we use something fantastic like Turnitin or copy leaks, you name it. What was the outcome and what was the achievement we were looking for there? If we're in the vocational space, a lot of answers would be the same, I would suspect. Plagiarism scores would be very high. If we're looking at project work that's unique based on context and scenario, how are we validating that? Are we using great assessment tools and resources and design to flag it without the use of plagiarism tools? Are we going back in? Are we doing verbal questioning of that learner? Are we doing observations to see, do they really have that knowledge that they're professing to within that mode and method of assessment? So I think it's really important where our focus is when we look at the technological sort of advances of AI and ChatGPT. I'm not saying there's a right or wrong approach here, but I think knowledge and empowering our learner perhaps to use it better is something that is not the natural go-to, but does potentially offer a lot of value and a lot of benefit. I won't go into my personal sort of thoughts and feelings too much around plagiarism checking within the vocational space. I think it has its place, certainly when we get to the higher AQF levels, perhaps. But as part of a really robust and authentic assessment, I think it's probably carries less weight than we give it in a lot of instances. When we look at e-learning, I think one of the big tech trends that we'll see as we move forward is more of the augmented and integrated sort of scenario-based and VR, AI sort of compatibility. When we look at the new device that Apple has launched recently, their headset that augments reality, VR across the two sort of different distinctions. It's really exciting times for how we could unlock its value and benefit in the education space. There's also lots of privacy concerns and considerations we'll have with that as well. I'm sure when we bring that scenario-based piece, technology-driven, into the real world. But is that, what benefits does it have to us? I've seen e-learning that really isn't fit for purpose, in my opinion, and others. We've seen e-learning, again, I'll use an example in carpentry, where literally with the e-learning piece, part of the knowledge delivery was a drag and drop of a hammer onto a nail. Now, when we go back to the unit requirements that they were looking to achieve there and the practical application they were looking to assess and the value and benefit of that learning piece, yes, we could argue it got some engagement. People had to do it to move forward. But what was the learner taking away from it? What value does that set? How does that make them work ready? And are we putting that in because we've removed an experienced trainer that can share that? Have we perhaps lessened the show me, tell me, explain, and hands-on practicality that our learners, may crave in a very vocational space? So e-learning, it has to be interactive, it has to be engaging, but is it good? Is it good and is it fit for purpose? Some e-learning, even the best that is, being developed by some fantastic instructional designers that have gone through subject matter expert review and the like, I can't help but argue on its own, it's not good enough. It only it serves a purpose for certain cohorts, certain contexts, certain requirements, and we've got to look at those modes and methods of delivery that we've got. So some big conversations I've seen around e-learning earlier today. I think it was Sarah Carey in the panel discussion said, we've moved past that just being able to get away with attaching a learning guide as a PDF for our learners. But we're looking at transfer of knowledge. The PDF, the e-learning, it's all one mode or one method. We need to look outside of that and see how do we value it. There was conversations regards to, we've got an AI generated video that's a little bit creepy and, the AI voice describing, explaining and trying to share knowledge, which is really not very engaging and also very questionable in accuracy. But it's a form of e-learning that we've employed there. Have we done that because we don't have a skilled trainer and assessor? Would a skilled trainer and assessor, perhaps being recorded on an iPhone, describing and delivering that knowledge to the attendees, even if they are remote, carry more weight and more value? Why have we invested in instructional design to get this 100% automated process that we feel is really engaging? Have we missed the point of why we need that knowledge transfer? And have we looked at the suitability to it? Don't get me wrong, some fantastic experiences out there, some fantastic solutions, but is it relevant to our delivery? The AI assistance piece, AI, how you break down what AI is interesting. Everybody thinks that it's simply ChatGPT and variants of it. The AI assistants, they've been around for a long, long time, right from sort of spell check, really. Far simpler technology. We're not talking about, the super sort of power that we've got within processing of information and recall of information that we now have with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just one form of those AI assistants. When we, first saw Grammarly come out and the like, there was challenges around that in the higher education space. When we saw the advent, I can't personally remember this, but the launch of the calculator in schools was met with resistance and the like. And it was lack of understanding perhaps around how we're going to control it and the benefits that we might unlock from it. So again, it's about how quick are we moving with those changes, and what are we focused on trying to achieve with or without that technology. And feedback, really authentic, quality, valuable feedback that's timely. When we look at the AI and the automated feedback solutions available in different platforms, are they missing empathy? Are they missing context? Are they missing any adjustment for the learner? Do they have that rapport that we've got if we're doing it face to face, if we're doing it with different modes and different methods? So how do we build in great feedback mechanisms within our tech? How do we review them to make sure that they're suitable? I think one big piece, and this came out of my my previous webinar, one big piece is that empathy piece is missing. Perhaps it's faked or staged to make us feel that it's achieving it in some of the AI solutions, and I think that's potentially a real danger. So something we need to be considerate of and making sure that we don't compromise in that space. And availability of a real person, of a real face, is so important. It's been mentioned many, many times from learner feedback. I've got an online message that comes anonymously from a group admin. How valuable is that to me as a learner when I've asked a specific question? Maybe very, very much so, but in some instances I may be not having the expected quality that I would really want. Awesome. Workplace learning. I've leaned on logbooks and supervisors a little bit earlier, but there's such benefit perhaps to real-time evidence capture and how we use supporting evidence, how our trainers are provided additional evidence to make better competency judgments. Again, it's supporting evidence, not a first-hand. So how are we evaluating it? Does it meet those rules of evidence? And do our solutions enable, perhaps the right outcomes that we're looking for there? With workplace learning, the RPL piece, I've had lots of conversations with workplace providers, enterprise RTOs over time, where feedback from the employees and from their learners has been very much, I've got experience that's not being acknowledged here. Every new job that I've had over the last 10 years, I've spent a day sat in a room watching safety videos or, how to follow certain procedures. And I've done it time and time again. Why don't we look at perhaps an assessment first approach for some of these learners? Now, RPL is a very documented process that we have within the vocational space, but sometimes we would be better to holistically perhaps assess our learners' capability, current knowledge, and the like before doing a one size fits all. So the assessment first model is something that workplaces are really looking into, something that I've done a lot of work with certain providers on. And I really don't think there's compromise of quality there. We get a much higher engaged learner if we're delivering relevant to their knowledge gaps, to their personalized learning requirements. And our assessment covers that really sufficiently to gather us the right evidence to make the right decisions on an individual basis. And that is absolutely key, that technology can support that rather than hinder it. There's nothing worse than signing up for an online course and doing the same as everybody else. But my background, my knowledge, my industry experience, my relevance may be very different to the next candidate. So how do we acknowledge that with technology, and how do we assess it? There's some great solutions available, but really and truthfully, they all do hinge around an assessment first approach. Let's self-assess. And self-assessment has its own flaws. There's lots of different modes and methods of assessment that are relevant to that assessment first model. We've got a blog actually launched at the beginning of this week, available on the website, that really deep dives the pros and cons of different modes and methods of assessment in that assessment first model, right from polls, surveys, and the like as well. So yeah, super, super important how we approach that workplace and workplace readiness. Accessibility covers some of the same requirements, but with different considerations. Making tech accessible can be right down to the basics of they actually don't have devices. And that's very common that we see out there. So if as a business we're adopting tech is a bring your own device sort of expectation, inclusive, is it, you know, meeting that fairness requirement? Because somebody is more efficient with tech than I, should they, you know, should they be advantaged? How do we build that capability? How do we look at it? But your solutions need all of this capability. When we go back to Dr. Denise's comment around, sorry, I believe it was Kerry and Dr. Denise that were discussing it around, we come across learners every day that don't know how to receive or send an email. How are we making people log into our solutions? Have we restricted that? You know, is it that one size fits all approach because it suits us as a business and we don't want those kind of learners? Or are our options, our solutions available that give us that flexibility? They really are. You know, technology is out there now to make it smarter and more efficient. So we should definitely be spending time to review those without a shadow of a doubt. The design of content. So when we talk about assessment, we've got to look at that formative design as well as the summative design. Our summative assessment is so important, for sure. That's the output of what we do here in VET. That's where we know that the strong focus at audit, we know the biggest non-compliances come from that assessment piece. How are we addressing it in our design? So does our design have the capability that we want? But have we validated it with our learner as well? We know we might have a very robust and compliant assessment, but is it actually driving us the right outcomes? Do we have authenticity? Do we have the engagement that we expect from it? Is it good? We've done it, but is it good? So really good design, and that is also benefited by the trainer, your team. If we're delivering that practical or assessor-led processes, it might be very efficient for our trainer, but is it enjoyable? Is it, you know, suitable for them? They might wish to actually share their own input, their own sort of knowledge, their own experiences to their learners. How are they gathering that and engaging with that tech to do so? So really important with design, and design is changing all the times. ChatGPT, yes, it can, you know, spit out words for you. Yes, it can, you know, write learning content. It can format it really nicely, training materials and the like, and it can be really efficient. But it is just that. It is just an output of content. Our design covers so many more different aspects. So from design, it's not just that it's meeting the standards, the learning outcomes, it's you know, fit for purpose from an industry perspective, but do they have the relevant sort of options, sketch pads. I much prefer drawing than writing. How am I? I'm not comfortable with a QWERTY keyboard. How can I engage with this? You're expecting me to give really good feedback, but I'm on my iPhone trying to peck it out one finger at a time. So solutions there that have got to be across the whole delivery method. The equipment availability, we touched on it, but and a lot of schools here in Queensland have a device policy where, at certain years we've got to provide an iPad or a tablet device. At later years, we've got to provide laptops, and as parents and the like, I'm sure we've all been exposed to those different sort of approaches that state schools and private schools are running with device availability. And we've seen device snobbery in schools, people being called out because they haven't got the latest and greatest tech. I'm sure I've seen evidence of it as well, that exists in the workplace. If we've got a really sort of experienced end user of technology, they might actually not have any real world experience, but they could excel if our design of assessment doesn't suit the requirement and doesn't look at those that aren't perhaps so comfortable with the technology or don't have availability to access. So how do we fix those problems? I've seen organizations with large banks of iPads. I've seen organizations with $30 tablet devices. How will we fix in that accessibility piece as well? It's all got to be built around design for our learner. Awesome. Evidence and compliance, so capturing evidence, timelining of that information. These are all benefits potentially of tech, but there are some concerns with some of this as well. Is our quality process, because we've built in loads of efficiency, just a tick and flick? How holistic is it? How are we looking at that versus a true moderation sort of approach? Are we using that as moderation when it really isn't sufficient? So, every one of these benefits has to be looked at with its own concern as well. When we talk about digital tools that can facilitate the collection of evidence, how in our design do we make sure that it's delivering against those rules of evidence? Uploading of video, audio, even taking pictures, images, gathering portfolios of information. It's great we can do it. What controls, what direction? And it's about clear instruction, clear expectations being set in those assessments, rather than the standard, upload a picture here. A picture showing what? A picture with what authenticity, what validation? So it really needs to be thought through. And these are the common things that we'll see in order to feedback. Yeah, that's great. There's somebody with a hard hat there when we're talking about PPE. How are we delivering against that evidence piece for us? The engagement piece. This is where we got to look at that social integrations as well. So we spoke about badging during the panel piece. Badging, very, very popular. It's a great social acknowledgement, a great instant sort of piece to walk away from training with. But from a badging perspective, are we lessening what we do? Do we still have that quality in the requirements that our statement of attainment delivers? Is it fit for purpose at a qualification or a unit level? Is it more framed around micro credentials? It is what our technology allows us to do and what we're looking to achieve with it, but it needs to be very carefully approached. Badging, the social elements of badging, there's a few pieces coming out. I was looking at a paper from the US around the social elements of badging, and really and truthfully, that just exposed to me that it is a very different social way of communicating that learners are more and more familiar with, not necessarily badging, but that's technology use. They converse now with 3-second clips on TikTok, perhaps, or very video-based sort of experience shares and the like. Whereas other modes and methods would be, when we talk about reading blog posts, we talk about audio books, and we talk about different sort of channels that we follow. They all impact our social share. So how do we address that within the training delivery using tech? We've got to embrace where relevant and right, as long as we keep to that fit for purpose review. Learner journeys. Learners, potentially those that have got employment, might pick up training at different times of the day, evenings. How are we making sure that they've got access to quality? If I'm going to go and do my study, or I'm going to attempt some assessment, and it's late in the evening, what methods have we employed there to ensure that they still have the same quality as somebody who was able to attend perhaps a face-to-face class? So how are we challenging our tech to deliver that for us? But also fantastic solutions for keeping engaged. So last poll, I know we've got about 5 minutes left of the session. So I'm going to launch the last poll. What do you think is the most important factor to keeping learners engaged? So lots of suggestions in here, but we'll have a quick vote. So clear instructions. Is it how do we incentivize and the reward for learning? Is it good design, ongoing feedback, multimedia? And I think there's they've all got a place. So I do think this might be a little bit split here as well, but really interested to see your thoughts and feelings on this one. Awesome. We'll give you just one more minute on this. Fantastic. Okay, so nearly 80% of you there. I'll end that poll and we'll share those results. Good learning and assessment design came out very, very much the front runner there. Doesn't surprise me either. I would very much say clear instruction is all part of good learning and assessment design. I think that one was in there just to throw us off. The ongoing feedback, exactly right. It's definitely something that I'm really passionate around, quality and opportunity to improve there. But when we talk about things like engagement, when we talk about multimedia and RE learning, perhaps that falls into that category. On the session here today, we've given that far less perhaps a consideration, but good learning design again might be where we're going with that. Good learning design will definitely have an opportunity to include multimedia. And when we talk about that multimedia, lots of different levels. Like I said, it could be a very experienced trainer and assessor delivering quality sort of tuition, or it could be our AI produced video with a creepy voice. So yeah, awesome. Obviously, what we can do to improve this, the peer review of our materials, our assessment design and the like, supporting our teams and our employers that we work with in digital literacy, making sure our continuous improvement includes our tech approach and we use it appropriately. And very clear on why and how we're using it is absolutely something that we don't always see. That transparency piece, I think some people and some organizations try and hide the fact that, as a commercial business, there's a cost element here in the concern that quality is taking a back seat. Not always the case. Few case studies. So obviously from a commercial perspective, very focused some of these case studies, but we've got to be realistic. Commercially, it's got to be viable. And there's definitely some big opportunities for efficiency and cost savings around it. But when we look at this as well, there's a lot of different benefits for the learner potentially and for our training teams as well. The instant piece is something that we're seeing around that digital badging for sure, and really helps with driving engagement and the like. As a quick summary, fit for purpose solutions. I've used that term fit for purpose quite a lot through the session, but fit for purpose solutions as an environment, we are very assessment driven here in VET. So why would we pick a tool that's not? VET Compliance, it's got to have alignment with our compliance obligations and requirements. Got to be flexible to capture skills and knowledge, and how we recognize that through quality evidence and outcomes. Give us the design capability, give us the ability to bring in fantastic but varied learning opportunities, not a one size fits all. And from an accessibility perspective, we've definitely, even today in Australia, we've got the challenges and sometimes a workplace challenge with internet access. So definitely things that we need to consider in the solutions that we're employing within our delivery there as well. For attending today, you do have full access to our library of topics and content and resources. There's loads of really cool stuff in there, can support with PD and stuff as well. Feel free to jump on the website. You'll see the free course options there and be able to enroll yourselves and share that with your team. Scanning the QR code here, which will be sent to you as well with the recording, will be a nice way to get into it. But I really will thank you all very much, and happy to take some questions if anybody wants to hang around, drop anything in chat. But really appreciate your time today. I hope that we've given you plenty to think about there, and lots of considerations to take back to your business when we're reviewing how tech helps us deliver assessment without compromising the digital world.